party people, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. I have another art journal process video for you guys today. It seems that those of you that watched the one I put up last week really enjoyed it. So as long as you guys are willing to tune in, I will keep sharing with you guys what I'm making. So I'm not going to do the whole art journaling is not scrapbooking thing that I did last week, because I think you guys all heard me babble about that. So let's just talk about what I'm doing today. It's been a rough few days here, and so I need my art journaling process and my creative process now more than ever. And so I have just been making a lot. I've been scrapbooking, I've been journaling, and I've been working in my art journal. And it's been very good for me, and I'm really enjoying the process, the making, the gluing, the painting, even the mess that I have at the end of an art journal page. Like, it all feels like part of the process, and I've really been enjoying getting back into this book. So I'm still working in my Arteza book. This is I think like 8.5 by 11.5. It's a little bit bigger than 8.5 by 11. And I don't always do double spreads in this, but today I felt like doing a double spread. So I'm doing a double spread. And what I started with was just gluing down some collage paper from Tim Holtz. Unfortunately, this roll is no longer available, but you can get rolls of collage paper anywhere. You can use old book paper. You don't necessarily have to use collage paper. You can use hymns. You can use whatever you have on hand to do a collage. It's just getting some texture in the background. And then I covered it with a really heavy coat of gesso. And this is for two reasons: to toughen up the page, but also to kind of mute out the colors of the colors and the empty spaces between the collage paper. So I just went in with some gesso. I'm working on my mixed media mat, so like the tonic glass Tim Holtz, whatever this thing, the glass mat that everyone else uses. And so I decided to play with my Neocolor crayons. I knew I wanted to do some sort of like drippy thing, and I wasn't sure what my plan was, but I pulled out my Neocolor 2 crayons, and these are a water-soluble crayon. They're like watercolors. They're very similar to like the distress crayons or scribble sticks if you've worked with them. I've just always had the Neocolor 2, so I don't really go with anything else. I just use these, and I decided to split my page between warm and cool tones. So I put the yellow, which I guess yellow is considered warm, but yellow blends into green, which then blends into blue. So I put that on one side. And I just picked a yellow, a green, a teal kind of color, and then a darker blue. And I scribbled directly on my page. And then from there, I just use a paintbrush to kind of wet the color and loosen it up a little bit. And then I spritz it with my distress sprayer to get the movement and to get water running down the page. That was the effect I wanted. Was just to get like paint droplets, like ink droplets running down the page. And so you see I'm working on this side from the bottom up. So as I do it, I spray it, I like sop it up with some paper towel, and now you see most of my droplets are gone. I would say if I was going to do this again, I would dry between layers, because my gesso starts, not the gesso, the matte gel underneath all this water starts kind of beating up. And so I lose a little bit of the color going back in and adding more and more, and also I lose some of the collage paper I put in the background. So I think if you're going to do something similar, I would highly recommend drying between layers instead of putting the crayon directly into the wet puddles. I was impatient. I am always impatient, and I just wanted to keep scribbling. So you see I just kind of keep going and adding more and more color. So I add the color, I wet it with my paint. I have like a mason jar of water that you can't see, but I just wet it so it starts moving. And then after the color is all kind of pooled up and moving, I hit it with my distress sprayer and I let it run down the page. This is a really easy way to get that kind of drippy paint look. You can do the same thing with watercolors. I just find the crayons easier to work with than traditional colors, so that's why I go with that. On the other side, I decided to do the more warm colors. So I grab an orange, a yellow, not yellow, that's not yellow, an orange, a red, a hot pink, and a purple, and same thing. I scribble it down, and then once I've scribbled all 4 colors, I hit it with my paintbrush and to wake the colors up and to kind of get that pool of color and then get it to start sliding down the page. So this is kind of the same thing, so I'm not going to really talk through it. I don't know what I would say about it, but I will kind of talk to you about my intentions and what I was working through for this page. It seems very dark in the world around us right now. I'm not sure how much you guys are following the news reports that are coming out with the coronavirus, and it's kind of hard to avoid it, right? Like, it's everywhere. It's very pervasive, and you turn on the news and you see it. You go on social media and you see it. You talk to your friends and family, and it's almost all everyone wanted to talk about, and so life was starting to seem very gray, and I am an extrovert. So now you're telling me that I can't even go outside and people, and I like being around people. People's my thing, and now I'm stuck at home, with the exception of work, and so I just needed to find the color, I needed to find my own rainbow, and since it was hard to find a rainbow, I just decided to make one, and so I just literally just decided to put a bunch of color down on this page and see what happened. That was my only goal and motivation when I started making this, was to get color down on the page. Everything after this point just kind of happened. So now I pulled a stencil from Joggles. This is called Bud Toss. This is a 6x9 stencil, and then I just go in and I add some gesso, and here's where I realized that it's actually not as dry as I think it is. So the gesso is starting to just blend with the wet watercolor in the background, so it's not as obvious as it would have been if it was dry before I started doing this, but I said this last week and I stand by it. Art journaling for me is a lot about the process and not so much about the final result, right? So even though it was dry and it wasn't dry and you couldn't really see the gesso, I like that therapeutic like pouncing motion, so I just kept doing it. And you can kind of see how it shows on some of the colors where some of the colors were dry. And then I hit it with my heat tool. In between these things, you'll see I have a little bit of a watercolor palette that I didn't have a few seconds ago. I used some of the Pink Fresh liquid watercolors because I wanted to eventually add splatters to this page. So that is why it is on the side of my desk. But for now, we are just working on adding texture to this background. And unlike last week, you will still see the background when I am finished with the page. Last time I made this like really detailed and ornate background, and then it was gone. But I'm using some archival inks and an old text stamp to just add some texture to the background. This stamp was originally on a wood block, and I just took it off the block because I wanted to be able to do what I'm doing here, which is rolling the stamp onto the page. So I took the stamp off the block, and now I just have this large 4x6 text stamp. And so I stamped it in a pink archival ink on the more warm side, and I'm going in with a teal archival on the more blue side, just to keep the colors together and to go with a more tone on tone. I didn't clean my stamps between colors. I like to live on the edge. So I like to take a walk on the wild side. I don't actually get any purples, oddly enough. The blue just completely like took over the pink once I started stamping on the blue side. So I don't get any mixing of color. And you can kind of see how the stamping, I don't know how much you'll see it on camera, but the stamping just in the background is just, again, it's just adding to the background. We're not doing anything crazy here. We're just adding to the background. And then I grab a flower stamp. I don't remember where this one was from. I'll see if I can find it. I think I got it on Amazon, so I'll see if I can link it in the description box. But it was another one of these really thick cling stamps. So these are not like the photopolymer stamps that you would use necessarily in like your scrapbooking. These are like really thick cling stamps. And I decided to stamp a border of flowers along the base of the color. So it's going along the bottom of my cool tone side, and then it's going to go across the top of the page on my more warm tone side, because I want it to be where the color is the strongest, before it starts dripping down. And again, I like the balance of like things being higher on the page on the left side and things being lower on the page on the right side. I just think that looks really fun. So now I am pretty much wetting my Pink Fresh watercolors, and I'm just going to be adding some tone on tone splatter. So I had a few of the Pink Fresh watercolors. I don't have the entire color palette, but I had a pink, a purple, an orange, a yellow, a blue, and a green, which was kind of perfect for what I needed right here. So I do, like, I put the purple in the purple, I put the pink over the pink and the red, and I put the orange over the orange and the red also, just to add some ink splatter. You could have done this with the Neocolors. Like, it is possible to create a pool of watercolor with the Neocolor crayons, but I figured if I have the supplies, I might as well use them. I don't use my stuff as often as I should. So I just pulled out those watercolors and put them in a watercolor palette. And then I use a roll of paper towel to dry up the excess ink. This is the silicone craft sheet. I'm not sure exactly what it's called. I'll link it in the description box. I like to put it over my pages, like under my pages if I'm making a lot of mess, like wet mess, but this also works to protect the other side of your page. And I didn't want to get like the cool toned paint colors on the warm tone side of the page, if that makes any sense. So I just covered up the other side, and I'm doing the same thing, adding the yellow, adding some green, and adding some blue over the places where my inks go. And again, I like that like faded look that I get with the drippy paints. Like, it looks like they kind of just go off into nowhere, and I really like that effect. So now I'm pretty much just going to start working on my focal element. So I have this stamp from Prima, and these are very old stamps from Prima. They did a series of these like princess stamps. I've had this for, I want to say 3 years, and I've just never used them. And I bought 3 of them because they were gorgeous, and then never used them. But I saw Dina, was it Dina? I think I saw Dina Wakely do this. Yes, she did it with her scribble sticks. So you can wet your stamp or wet your crayon. At first I started wetting my crayon, but eventually I realized it's just easier to wet the stamp. And then color your stamp with a watercolor crayon, and it gives you this kind of watercolor effect when you stamp. So you could do this with any cling stamp. If you have a background stamp, or if you have a stamp like this, like a huge stamp, or if you have like smaller flowers, you can do this with any sort of cling stamp. So what I did was I just took a brown Neocolor to outline where her skin is. Like, I think these are designed to be watercolored in, but you know, YOLO, you do what you want with your supplies. So I added some blue around her eyes, and then I took some green and I colored in her hair because there's flowers in her hair. And here's where I realized it would just be easier to spray the stamp than to constantly be wetting the crayons. So I just fill in her hair with all of the green where the leaves are, and then once all the leaves are filled in, I grab a pink crayon and I use that to color in the flowers. And I'm trying to repeat colors that are already in my background and not bring in any new colors, which is why I'm using the blue and the pink and the green. I didn't want to use the red next to the green because I was worried that once they got wet and they mixed, you'd get like mud. But the pink and the green don't seem to do that. So I was okay with mixing the pinks and the greens. So after I colored in all of her hair, I took a black one to fill in all the places in her hair that weren't the leaves and the flowers. And I am just messily scribbling this on. There's no like, with the technique like this, there's no real finesse. You just kind of follow the lines. And then I'm taking a mixed media tag. This is a huge tag, and I end up cutting it down and making a second tag out of it. And I'm putting it directly on the stamp. You could flip the stamp and put it on the tag, but I just thought it would be easier to do it the other way around. And look at how cool that watercolor effect is. It's really blurred out, so you can kind of see, you can still see the details of the shape, but it's also really blurred out, so it looks like really distressed. I liked it a lot. So I cut my tag down because it was huge, and then I took some black archival ink to distress the edges like I did last time. And then after distressing it with black archival, I thought it'd be fun to add the same colors that were on my page. So I actually ended up taking the teal archival ink and going over the black to just add some more color. And I am being very messy about this. So I don't mind if the teal ink gets onto my tag. The purpose of it was to see it, right? So I'm going a little bit more heavier with the teal ink than I did with the black one, just so you could see it over it. You could do the same thing with like a distress ink. I just wasn't sure if I was adding any more water to this page, and I did not want the ink to move, which is why I went with the archival. So that's the extra bit that I cut off of the tag when I cut the girl off. So I decided to make another tag because waste not, want not. So I trimmed it down, punched a hole, made another tag, and then there was a little bit of extra ink and like paint on the stamp set. So I just used that new tag to blot up some of those colors. So now it has the same color palette as the the girl I stamped. And I find that it's really fun to repeat colors on pages like this. So since I had the extra color anyway, I figured I might as well go for it. So I use some matte gel medium to stick down my large tag. You could use glossy accents or anything else, but I figured since I was collaging anyway and I already had all my matte gel, I might as well just use it. Now, a lot of the things on my page were not dry yet. So the matte gel did pick it up and move it around, so I probably should have like heat set that and waited for it to dry. But again, I was impatient and I don't mind the kind of grungy effect you get. So I go back to my title tag and I grab a stamp. I kind of forgot what the stamp says. It pretty much says that like every ending is like a new beginning, something along those lines. And it's an old Dilution stamp that I had in my stash, and I use the empty space above it to add some journaling. And I'm journaling about what's on the news right now. So I'm journaling about having to press pause and having to stay home and how doors can both open and close, which is just perfect because my one little word for 2020 is open. So I talked about doors opening and doors closing and how both things can happen and how both things can be good for us. And I just did a little bit of journaling using a Stabilo pen. And then I go ahead and stick this down with some matte gel, and that completes this page pretty much. So I hope you enjoyed this art journaling video. I hope it inspired you to get messy and to kind of work through your own feelings or whatever's going on. So yeah, please like, comment, and subscribe if you're so inclined. Let me know what you think about the process and about this video, and I will see you next time. I'm going to try to do one art journaling video a week, so hold me to it. So next time, keep it crafty and have the best day, and I will see you around. Bye!